Well, we welcome Lori Saitz. She's CEO of Zen Rabbit, an award-winning writer, speaker, and broadcaster, and a nationally recognized expert in using gratitude and meditation to manifest goals faster. She's now on a mission to guide Gen Xers on a place of unprecedented passion, clarity, peace, and to rediscover their purpose so that they can get back to a place of liking themselves and their lives again. Now, Laurie, take us on your journey. Where did this whole process start for you? Obviously, you went through quite a transition process, ending a 22-year marriage and reconfiguring your life. How did that all start?
Yes, reconfiguring. That's a great way to put it. It really started 4 years before I actually left the marriage. And I was shutting down my first business. I had run that company for 11 years, couldn't quite scale it the way I wanted to. So I decided to shut it down. And at that same time, not because of, but at the same time, my mom was diagnosed with an acute form of leukemia, and she passed away only 6 weeks later. And so the intersection of those two events really gave me time or reason to stop and think, okay, how do I want to live the next 20 years? Like, do I want to live the next 20 years the same way I've lived the last 20? And not that there was anything wrong with those 20, but is that the path I want to continue on?
That is such an important question, because I hear it so often from our listeners, who are mostly women, 40 and upward, in that phase in life where they're asking themselves, I have so many years left, good years left. What am I going to do with those years? And obviously, there's so much fear to overcome, to transmute, and it takes an enormous amount of courage to do something entirely new. What advice would you give women in that phase of life?
Absolutely. It takes a lot of courage. That's right. So the first thing I advise people is to get clear, because that often we go on living life and we don't really pay attention to what is important to us. So there's a disconnect between what we might say is important, what we value, like friendship, for example. And yet you look at your calendar and you haven't made time to spend any time with friends in the past 6 months because work and life has just gotten in the way. So then you have to go, okay, well, do I really value friendship or not? And if I do, then I need to rearrange some things to make sure that becomes a priority.
So, yes, but so many people seem to be stuck in that comfort zone, which is in fact a very uncomfortable zone.
Exactly. And this is why my program is called F Being Fine. I don't know if you have PG rating on this show, but it's F Being Fine. My podcast is called Fine is a 4-letter word, because we go along saying everything's fine. It's fine. But that's not great. It's better than horrible, right? But
exactly.
but it's mediocre, and that's not a place to live life from.
Absolutely. You've gone through that pain of making that change. I've gone through it. I've gone through 2 divorces and given up an unfulfilling job. And I would say now, in retrospect, thank God. Because life can be so different.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing you touched on. It's scary to take that leap. It takes courage, because you don't know what's on the other side and you have no way of knowing. All you hear are these people saying, jump, your wings will grow on the way down. And all you can see is the rocks below. And am I going to crash to my death? Figuratively. And so we stay in this place because it is safe. Fine is like that warm blanket on a cold night. Like, I'm just going to stay on the couch under here and be fine. And Some people spend their whole life that way, and that's okay. Like if you're okay with that, and that's what you're willing to accept, and like you said, compromise with, then, that's your choice. We, as humans, have free will. You're welcome to stay there. And the reason you're feeling that pull to something greater is because your soul is always looking for growth. And that's
Oh,
what it's calling out
absolutely.
for.
I agree so much with you. I think the whole of life is really becoming who you truly are. And so often we have to go through that pain, which is really telling us, you need to change something. You need to
Yes.
reconfigure.
You're bringing to mind the analogy of a butterfly. And when it's in the cocoon, it has to fight its way out of the cocoon in order to blossom into a butterfly. And I'm not an expert on butterflies, but I've heard that if someone comes along and cuts the cocoon, the butterfly will die because it needs to fight its way out to become the butterfly. Like just letting it out, is arms or whatever, its wings are too weak. It doesn't build the strength through the fight to be able to survive.
That is such a good analogy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell people too, so take the risk and find the courage to do the thing. And, there's all kind of ways to help build that courage, but know that it probably will get worse, because that's the reason people are afraid. They're like, well, what if it's worse? Yes, it probably will be. Let me give you the truth. It probably will be for a minute, and then it gets better.
Now, I want to touch on your gratitude ritual that is part of your whole guidance and mentoring process. What do you tell people? What should they do to go into that feeling of gratitude?
Yeah, that is part of what I call the trilogy for success. It's gratitude, connections, and courage. The gratitude piece is where we have to start. So it's a matter of looking around and seeing in your life, where can you find gratitude? Because no matter how bad it looks, a situation, a life, whatever it is, there is always that silver lining, if you will. There's always that shred of gratitude somewhere. And if you can find that, that's a great place to start building.
I always tell people to start their day with some kind of gratitude ritual or gratitude journaling, because so many people I know start their day, first thing, they switch on CNN, they watch the news, or they flick through the smartphone, and that kind of puts you into that negative space for the whole day.
Absolutely, it does. I just wrote a post on LinkedIn, or actually I did a live video on a few days ago on LinkedIn about, people talk all the time about what is your morning ritual. And that's very important. Backing it up though, what is your evening ritual? So, because a lot of people are falling asleep with the crappy news on, and it's going into your subconscious, and that's what you're putting yourself to sleep with, or they're on their phone up into the moment they close their eyes. Same thing, even if you're just scrolling endlessly on social media and you're not even seeing terrible things, it's just your brain is overstimulated. And so I highly recommend starting your sleep habits with putting down the phone at least 30 minutes before you go to sleep, which is so difficult. Even I teach this and it's still difficult for me. Don't watch the news. I mean, really don't watch the news ever, but especially not right before you go to sleep. And I advocate listening to healing frequency music.
That is such good advice. I think it's so important, because we are so distracted today by these energies pulling at us from all sides, telling us how to be, how to live, and then we lose perspective, we lose purpose, who we really are. So many sages do recommend keeping a dream diary, and you're so right. If you fill your subconscious mind with that negative energy, how are you going to wake up the next morning?
Exactly. So when you set yourself up for a good night's sleep, you set yourself up for a good day the following day.
This connection between gratitude and well-being and contentment, obviously that would just be one starting point.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of science and research behind how gratitude, how being grateful, how being in this attitude of gratitude actually changes your physiology. It changes the way your brain is wired. It changes how you see the world. And this is why it's so important. You mentioned about the outside influences, affecting your brain, how you're sleeping. All of that is trying to rewire your brain to be how they want it to be. They, whoever they is, to believe what they want you to believe. And practicing gratitude and meditation, both are the ways that you take back control of your own brain and your own thinking. And how do I want to see the world? Because when you think about it, we live in a place where a lot of people are stuck in this circle of complaining and criticizing because it's easy to do. It's just becomes habit. That's not a nice place to live. Like, it doesn't feel good.
Certainly not.
And right, when you come from this place of gratitude, that feels good because you're raising your energetic vibration. Gratitude and love are the highest energetic vibrations you can get to. Why wouldn't you want that?
Yes, indeed. So what type of meditation do you recommend?
That's a question. I see I'm part of, really involved in health and fitness. So I'm involved in several Facebook groups that talk about health and fitness all the time. And it always drives me crazy when I see people posting, what's the best running shoe? Okay. The best running shoe is the one that fits you. There's not one specific brand that works for everyone or one specific model that works for everyone. And I feel like it's the same with meditation. It's a matter of exploring what works for you. For some people, they prefer to sit in silence. Certainly, most of the times beginners can't do that very well. But even after all the years I've been practicing meditation, I much prefer, most of the time, I prefer a guided meditation or the combination. There's just so many, some people can't sit still, so they do walking meditations. Or
I'm a great favorite of that.
Yeah. Getting out in nature.
Yeah.
And getting out. Okay. So getting out in nature without your electronics. Let's go back to that. Don't take, and if you have to take your phone because, for safety issues or whatever, don't, keep it put away. Don't look at it, and don't have, podcasts playing and music or whatever it is. There's times for that. But just go out in nature and just observe the trees, the birds, the flowers, whatever it is. What can you hear? What do you see? Pay attention to that.
Which is the reconnection with the greater whole, where I find so many people are disconnected by being so engrossed with all this digital media, which actually dulls your senses instead of awakening them.
Right. So if that's what you need to do, and you can mix it up, it's not like you have to stay doing the same one all the time. Some people prefer to sit, some people prefer to lie down. Some people prefer to do it in the morning, some want to do it in the evening. Like, it's really a matter of finding what works for you and exploring. So not giving up after the first time you do a meditation and go, well, I can't turn off the thoughts in my head. Guess what? Almost no one can turn off the thoughts in their head.
You're so right.
It's part of the practice, right? People are always telling me, well, I'm not good at meditation because I can't stop the thoughts. That means you're human. That doesn't mean you're bad at meditation.
So true.
So yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's just important to stay at it in that mindset life is a teacher. There's something new for me to learn every day.
Yes.
Why do you think, well, I'm asking this question more to all my fellow male friends who have such difficulty going into self-development. I find most of my clients are women. Most of my listeners are women. Why do men have such fear in developing themselves on a mindset level?
I have two theories about this. One is they're typically afraid to ask for help. And so they don't want to, because perhaps, I'm guessing, because I'm not a man, but asking for help means that they are weak. And that can be for either gender. Really, that whole, if I ask for help, it means I don't know how to figure it out myself. So there must be something wrong with me. And that means I'm weak. So that's a hard thing to, I don't want to say admit you're weak, because asking for help to me is a sign of strength. Like, nobody can do this thing we call life on their own. I see these stories of self-made business people, really?
Really?
No,
Yeah,
that's not
exactly.
possible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely impossible, because even if you were raised by wolves, the wolves helped you. So no one
Yeah.
is completely raised on their own and built whatever they have become on their own.
Oh,
And then
that term "self-made man" is so misleading, isn't it?
yeah,
And you
yeah,
just struck a point there. Admitting I need help is so difficult for so many men, I
yeah,
would say. I
yeah.
think women um, have a far easier time in admitting I need help, I need counseling, I need guidance from someone who's further down the road who can help me in some aspect of life.
I think for the most part, women are raised to be more collaborative. And so it's not such a big deal for them to ask for help, because they're used to uh, working in a collaborative environment. And so asking for help isn't that big a deal.
I think that's really quite an important point. This collaborative nature. I find so many men who've gone through a job burnout. The last stage of that job burnout is often complete withdrawal from friends, from family, from work colleagues, until that final break comes, where some of these people have told me, thank God I had that burnout, because that taught me I need to change things. I need to
Yes.
seek help. But do you have to wait until that complete breakdown?
I think a lot of times people do, actually. They have to reach the bottom, that phoenix rising from the ashes idea, before they can transform into something greater. It's interesting though, because I just started a new group program that I'm teaching, and the majority of people in it are men.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was surprising to me too.
That's really good news.
Yeah. So maybe they're making strides. Y'all are making strides.
I think so, but maybe men are just a lot slower.
It's okay. Everybody runs their own race. So no comparison.
Now, you are CEO. You run a business. So, what advice would you give women, particularly, who want to go their own way?
We're talking about collaboration. And one of the most important pieces of starting or running a business that I've found is to find people call it finding your tribe. It's more finding your peers. So sometimes your tribe is like your ideal clients. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about finding a peer strategy group or a mastermind or whatever you want to call it, to help support you in those times when you're just, this isn't working. I'm going to quit. I hate it. It's not, because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as even somebody working in corporate. You go through these times where nothing seems to be working and you can't figure out how to move forward. And so you need that peer strategy group to give you that outside perspective.
And these are people outside your normal circle of friends,
yes,
that guide you along the way,
right. People
to
who
give you
are
to give you feedback on your path.
exactly people who are on the same journey, but at their own company, perhaps. So they're not part of your team. And yes, they're not your friends, because your friends have they are not unbiased. So a lot of times your friends, again, going back to want you to stay where you are because that feels comfortable. If you're growing, that may make them look at and reassess where they are, and that might be uncomfortable for them. So they want you to stay where you are. But a group of people who are all on a similar path to growth, to building a business, and having those people not only to help you when the times are hard, which there will be lots of hard times, also to help you celebrate your wins. Because again, your friends are not always going to be as supportive as you might want them to be.
I think you're touching on an important point there, because that circle of friends seeing you as a threat when you're making that stride forward. And very often that holding back comes from close family members.
Yes, family and friends. The people you think would be the most supportive of you are often not, because what you're doing feels threatening to them.
How do you find that mastermind group?
That's exactly what it is. It's about networking. So I love LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, making connections and building relationships on LinkedIn. Often it's finding a coach or a mentor who has a formal program, a formal mastermind program that you join. And that person is then the one pulling all the, it's typically a small group, let's say 8 or 10 people together to build this peer strategy group.
And you connect once a week, once every couple of days, or
it really depends on the group. I personally belong to a peer strategy group that meets twice a month. So on Zoom, we're all over I think most of the people in my group are all over the country in the US, but they could be from all over the world. It doesn't matter where your people are from. And everybody then can bring different perspectives to each other's problems. You can't see the fish can't see the water that it's swimming in. You have to get that outside perspective to help you solve problems.
Especially if that mastermind mentor comes from a completely different field, different sector. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you can imagine that everybody in that group is going to have different perspectives, because we're all different humans. So we're going to come at things differently and solve problems. Who was it that said you can't solve a problem from the same level that you created it? It might have been Albert Einstein.
Yes, there's one great quote from Einstein: "You can't do the same thing over and over again expecting a different result."
Yes, the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I would look to find somebody who is a business leader, somebody who runs those kinds of groups, and look to have a good, somebody that you like and respect.
And who is more successful than you are, who's been on the road longer than you are.
Yeah. Yes and no. Sometimes they don't necessarily have to have more experience than you. It's just having a different perspective and experience. Okay. For example, the person who runs my group is younger than I am, but has far more experience in sales. And he just managed to pull together this incredible group of women. It's all women in my group, run by a man. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
but he pulled together this incredible group, and it just works. So I had faith and trust in him, because I knew him for about a year before I joined this group. I had faith and trust in him that he would be able to pull together a group. And so when he put it out there and said, hey, if I put this kind of group together, would you be interested? I immediately said yes.
Now, we could talk a long time, Laurie. I think we touched on some important points.
Yeah.
What advice would you give our listeners? How can they connect with you?
My website is zenrabbit.com. That's the name of my company, Zen Rabbit. And as I mentioned, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So find me on LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you, Laurie. It was great talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.